present perfect or past simple. We're going to do a contrast of these two tenses now, and just to make it clear, by present perfect I mean present perfect simple, not present perfect continuous. Alright, let's look at the basic rules for present perfect. We use present perfect simple to refer to something that's completed, that is in the past, and that is in a period of time that is unfinished. And this unfinished part here is what can be quite tricky sometimes. So let's look at a couple of examples. I have eaten 3 pizzas today, and that's present perfect simple. And I ate 3 pizzas today, that's past simple. So in both cases we've said today, but the idea with this first one is I have eaten 3 pizzas today would suggest that more pizzas could be eaten today because it's still early. So perhaps we're thinking it's maybe 11 a.m. in the morning, it's not even lunchtime, you've already eaten 3 pizzas, so there's a good chance you'll eat more pizzas. Whereas in this case you might be lying in bed and you could say to yourself, lying in bed at night, and you say to yourself, I ate 3 pizzas today, thinking that today is now finished because I'm lying in bed. So it's really all about how you understand the time frame you mean when you say today, because we could be talking about a finished today or a continuing today. Alright, so this one is unfinished and this one is finished. Right, if we move to the next rule relating to time expressions, we see that already and since will be used with the perfect tenses, or the present perfect simple, whereas they cannot be used with past simple. So let's look at a couple of examples. I have eaten 3 pizzas already, so that's fine with the present perfect. And I have eaten 3 pizzas since I arrived. Again, since is fine when you use the present perfect. If we look at past simple, ate, you see it cannot work with already or since, so it's not advisable to try to do that. Although in American English it is possible for the purposes of standard British English, Cambridge exams, IELTS exams, this should be avoided. That is to say, the past simple should be avoided when using already. Okay, the next rule relating to time expressions is some time expressions indicate finished time, and therefore you would use the past simple for these time expressions. So yesterday, last month, in February, on my 7th birthday, and so on, you should use past simple with those ones. Alright, let's go to a look at a couple of examples. So I visited Oslo last week. This is past simple because you have given one of these time expressions that can only be used with finished time. The thing to avoid, which is fairly obvious, is you would avoid using the present perfect simple with one of these expressions. So that's what you should not do. Alright, so we move down now to some time expressions can be used with both tenses. So here it just simply doesn't matter whether you use past simple or present perfect, and we have for, recently, never before, and so on. There's quite a few of those. So some time expressions are okay with either. I have been abroad recently and I went abroad recently. In these two cases we have a very similar, if not identical, meaning. Here are some general rules, what they might call rules of thumb. So rules that won't always guide you in the right direction, but will usually be quite helpful, particularly when you're learning a second language. So here we'll just contrast the general rules that show when to use present perfect simple and when to use past simple. If we look at these two sentences, you might want to pause and think about how they are different. How the meaning of these two sentences is different. You could pause now and think about that. And the answer is that in this case, in the first case, the person who is saying this is still the director. They've been a director for a long time and they continue to be the director, whereas in this case they were the director for a long time and they're no longer the director. And as a rule, we would say that you use present perfect simple if the situation existed in the past and still exists now, where you would use the past simple if it no longer exists. And that's what we have done. Moving to the next one, Shakespeare wrote roughly 40 plays, and David Williamson has written roughly 45 plays. Roughly means approximately. There is some uncertainty about how many plays Shakespeare has written. So let's look at why these two are different. David Williamson, I need to point out, is an Australian playwright, quite famous and popular in Australia. He's still alive and well, whereas obviously Shakespeare is dead now and has been for some time. So let's look at what the rule is here. We use the present perfect simple, as in this case, when you have a repeated action that might happen again. So David Williamson has written 45 plays, so it's clearly repeated. And he's still alive, so he could write more. Shakespeare, on the other hand, he also performed the repeated action by writing many plays, but he is clearly dead, so it won't happen again. If we look at the rule here often relating to news stories, and I'll read it out to you. This is just an extract, an adaptation of a news story. So the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has announced that it will be donating $50 million towards fighting the Ebola outbreak in West Africa. The record pledge was largely inspired by a request from Secretary General Ban Ki-moon for $600 million to fight the epidemic. In this sentence, we've used the present perfect simple, and here we have used the past simple. We've used past simple within a passive structure, but it is nonetheless grammatically still past simple. So we look at why has that happened, and we can see that for news or new information, we'll introduce the story or the new information with the present perfect and give further details with the past simple. So that's what we have done above. Let's have a look at another one. So I have been to Japan, and I went to Japan last summer. Straight away, you could look at this one and say, well, the difference is that we have used a finished time expression. Last summer is now finished, so we use the past simple. But what about this one? How did we make this choice to use the present perfect? And what we say is that we use the present perfect simple when no time is specified, and the past simple when you have a clearly specified finished period of time. With the first one, I have been to Japan, what's implied here is that in my life or during my life, and my life is not finished, therefore we have an unfinished period of time, my life, and that would justify using the present perfect simple. Leonie has just eaten a chili, and Leonie ate a chili. You can think about what the difference might be there. And the difference is that in the first case, the present perfect simple, we're emphasizing that an event occurred recently. So, and particularly with the word just, we get the impression that this is very recently happened. Whereas Leonie, Leonie ate a chili, we have no indication of really when this happened, whether it was in the distant past or quite recently. The last example we're going to look at here, number 6, is probably the most ambiguous or most difficult to give a rule for. I have left the door unlocked, I need to go back and lock it. Or I left the door unlocked, I need to go back and lock it. Here we're saying pretty much the same thing. The idea here is the attitude of the speaker. So the attitude of the speaker, the feeling of distance or time from the event. In this case, the person obviously feels close to the event, either it was only a moment ago, a few seconds ago, or minutes, or it might be the door may be very nearby, just geographically or physically nearby. In this case, it would be far away, either in time or in geographical distance. So that's showing the differences between the present perfect simple and past simple, and trying to help you decide which one to choose. It's also worth looking at the video on when to use present perfect simple and present perfect continuous.